Greetings, BookTube. I don't have much of a sense of humor. The sense of humor I do have is juvenile. So I'll just let my I'll just let my sweater tell the joke for me. So today or tonight I will be doing my review of Paris in the 20th Century by Jules Verne. For my own life, for the life of me, I cannot pronounce Jules Verne, the name Jules Verne correctly in French. Café Cryptique might have something to say about that. Sorry. So, what is this book about? Before I tell you what it's about, I need to give you a little bit of background on the book itself. Jules Verne wrote this book in 1863, but his publisher thought it was unrealistic, so he never published it. He put it away in a safe, and in 1989, Jules Verne's great-grandson found this book, and it was published in French in 1994 and in English in 1996. So well over 100 years since the book was written. And I've since learned from Wikipedia that a lot of Jules Verne's books were posthumously published. So this is actually not unique in that sense. He did a lot of posthumous publishing. He published a lot of his stories were published posthumously. What's interesting about this book is this is Jules Verne's vision of what Paris would look like in the year 1960. Now he wrote this book. He finished writing this book in 1863. So how the world would look like a little under 100 years in the future. And he got a lot of things spot on correct, but he got a few things wrong as well. So he predicted a lot of modern technology. In this book, he predicted high-rise buildings, electrical street lamps, internal combustion internal combustion vehicles, cars, elevators and burglar alarms. Street lamp electricity, I think I said that. Fax machines and all kinds of things that I might be missing out on. Interestingly enough, this book was written just before the onset of typewriters. So interestingly, Jules Verne did not predict typewriters. And he did not predict, and don't even get me started on the internet, he did not predict the internet. But he predicted a lot of 20th century technology. Oh, and synthesizers, electric pianos. He also predicted that. Now, so he got some things right, he got some things wrong. Another major thing that he got wrong was journalism will become obsolete by the middle of the 20th century. He was very wrong on that. Now, that's the setting of the story. So it takes place in Paris from the year 1960 to 1962. And it's Jules Verne's vision of the future. He did not predict any political trends. So unless I'm mistaken, in this world that Jules Verne predicted, the France is still an empire ruled by a Napoleon. Unless I'm mistaken, because so it's in the early part of the 20th century. In the early part of the 20th century, he mentions there's still an emperor Napoleon. Napoleon the Fourth, I believe. Yeah. So there's that. He did not predict any political trends, world wars, etc. But he did predict a lot of technological trends, and he was spot on a lot of them. That's why I was interested in picking up this book. Now, what's the story about? So, in 1960, a young teenager, a 16-year-old named Michel, I think in English you would say Michel, but I'm going to say Michel, otherwise, because it doesn't say Michael exactly, but Michel is recently graduated from university with a degree in Latin. And Michel is a poet. And in this world, the arts have become irrelevant. Nobody is interested in it. This is a world where capitalism and making money and business is everyone's primary focus. But standards of living have increased, so have gotten better. But anyway, people are not focused by the arts. People are not interested in the arts. They're only interested in business. So this is a work. So in this book, Michel struggles with life in the modern world. He laments the loss of appreciation for artists, authors, poets, musicians. There is still that in this world, but poetry, for example, is poetry about making money, is poetry about machines. And it's not talking, and there's no interest in ancient Greek, for example, in the ancient Greek mythology, just to name but one example. People are just not interested in the past anymore. So Michel laments at how artists, artistic types, artistic people, and this also includes actors, by the way. Yeah, so plays. I forgot plays, playwrights and actors. Michel laments that artistic people, creative people, cannot earn a living with the arts anymore in this world. And to some extent, and you know what I have to say to that is, these days the arts are still relevant, but I still get it. There are hundreds of musicians that you'll never hear of, hundreds of bands you'll never hear of, hundreds of thousands of authors, of people who attempt to be authors that you'll never hear from. It's a competition out there. So there will some people who will never become successfully published authors in their lifetime. And I get that, because my books have never been published in stores for complicated reasons. So if you want to pursue a career in the arts, you'd be very lucky to. At most, you could probably earn a little bit of a supplementary income by drawing people's portraits in the streets. So I get that. I totally, by painting people's portraits in the street. And arts in this book also, and we also recognize that arts are evolving into modern arts. So Michel laments the loss of old-fashioned art and old-fashioned music, like classical music, classical art, not modern music, which uses a lot of electric synthesizing and auto-tune. So I see a lot of that in this. I see a lot of the modern world in this book, and Michel laments a lot about the loss of the past. in this book, there is no nostalgia. And and historians are not really, nobody really pays attention to their past. And I get that. People lament as technological, as modernity advances, we lose a little bit of ourselves. We lose a little bit of our past. I get that. We lose a little bit of our identity as we progress into the modern age. We don't remember how our ancestors lived. That's why we have these, in this world, we have things like battle reenactments. But in this world, people are forgetting about their past identity. And I totally get that. I get how people lament the loss of a little bit of who they are in the past. And I also get that it's difficult for someone like me to keep up with technology. At first, I was forced to get a cell phone, a Nokia cell phone. But then people were telling me for years, it's not enough to get a Nokia cell phone, you need to get a smartphone. And then everyone is always saying, there's an app for this, there's an app for that. And it's difficult for me to keep up with technology and software sometimes. I feel like a dinosaur. Video cassettes and DVDs are being replaced with live streaming. And a lot of people don't watch cable television anymore. And old people lament. And cash is becoming very digital. We are becoming a cashless society. And sometimes people don't accept cash in stores. So it is difficult to keep up with the modern trends. I completely sympathize with Michel's difficulties in the modern world. However, there is a big but here. A big but. Juvenile humor. There is a big issue here, and that is Jules Verne forgets that with the onset of modernity, we live longer, standards of living go up, we live longer with better health, with better technology in healthcare, and there is actually less wars, which he discusses in here. There it's a less violent world. So I would much rather be alive today than in the 19th century. Jules Verne forgets that with modernity, a lot of we will have better health care. Standards of living will go up with modernity. So he forgets that. And he also loses the plot. And what I mean by loses the plot, he loses the focus. He says that with war, with battles and wars, it produces honorable, chivalrous knights, for example, or soldiers decorated with medals. Times of war create patriots, create veterans that we salute. But that is, why are we celebrating? Well, we are only celebrating, we can celebrate our warriors, our veterans, but it's not necessary. Why do we constantly need to be reminded of sacrifices in warfare? Less war is a good thing. Less people dying from wars is a good thing. Jules Verne forgets that. And he also, there's one chapter here where he laments women in the workplace earning their own money. And so they're less, shall we say, they have less femininity. They're feminist in the sense that they are empowered, but they're not feminine. So they're not ladylike according to 19th century standards. And so, but Jules Verne loses the plot again. Empowerment of women is a good thing. So he misses out. So so he forgets that with modernity there is some trade-offs. And so I get it. People are less interested in going to libraries anymore. I barely get anyone in my library anymore. So I get that. So it is important to remember who we are and remember our history. But there is a balance. Modernity is a good thing. Okay? We have to remember who we are in terms of our past. So there is a delicate balance there. And the fact that people are not interested in the arts anymore, this reminds me a lot, and with technological efficiency, with making with businesses and stuff, this reminds me a lot of Brave New World and We by Yevgeny Zamyatin, and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This was very much ahead of its time had it been published. So this was not technically the world's first dystopia, but then it is. Is it a dystopia? Yes, but not really either. It's very mild dystopia. I can see myself living in Jules Verne's alternate world. Also, he says journalism has become irrelevant in this world. How exactly? Because not many interesting things happen, because there's not as many technological breakthroughs, or it's a more peaceful world, so there's less dramatics, or more efficiency in the economics, so there's less to report on. People are not interested in politics anymore because it's a more peaceful world. That's his, and I get it. With the rise of things like fake news, a lot of journalism these days are people second guess it, but journalism is not irrelevant, does not become irrelevant for one. So he got that one very, very wrong. Anyways, and also the ending of this book, I'm not going to give it away, but it was a demonstration that modern technology does not solve all our problems. There are still some serious issues that even modern technology and modernity cannot solve. I won't give away the ending, but that is how it ends, in the sense that there's that message. Not everything, modernity is not the solution to everything, but it doesn't solve the problem of, but it doesn't also at the same time address as to how we should remember who we are artistically. It doesn't resolve that in the end, if that makes any sense. Anyway, yeah, I give this book a... Oh, and one last thing. Jules Verne is obsessed with lists. So Michel talks with other artistic types in this book, interacts with other artists, other people, other artistic types, and they lament and they make a list of people who are playwrights, poets, authors, artists, and artists in terms of painting and sculpting, musicians. He laments, and he gives a long list of these artistic people from the 19th century, and philosophers as well, from the 19th century and before, from the ancient world to the present. He gives all these lists of people who are long forgotten. And he has a particular admiration for Victor Hugo, for example. So, as I was reading, I was kind of getting bored. It was just a long reference list of a whole bunch of French names that I cannot pronounce. Okay, thanks for listening in. I give this book a 6 out of 10. It's an interesting book to read, but it's a little boring, and he laments too much. He doesn't appreciate modernity as well as lamenting the loss of the past. So there are some flaws in this book, and it's kind of boring, but it's a fascinating prediction of the future. Okay, thanks for listening in. Goodbye.